Starting an e-commerce business in Nigeria in 2026, here are 5 mistakes that you should avoid while starting your e-commerce business. And these mistakes are mistakes that I personally had that cost me a lot in my business, and I'm going to be sharing them with you today so that you don't have to make these mistakes, right? So number 1 is importing products before testing them or without testing them. So basically, this is a thing I notice a lot of people too have. If you learn e-commerce the same way I learned it. So I learned e-commerce first by mini importation. I learned how to import first before I even started running e-commerce business. And back then, I could basically import stuffs, anything from China, and it was easy for me. So the moment I learned e-commerce, I just went ahead, checked Facebook ads library, checked what was other people were selling, saw adverts that people were running, and immediately I went to China, imported the product before I even started building a sales page for it and brought it in. Once the products came in, that was when the real sweat started. Like, I was basically sweating to sell this product, and that was because I didn't test the market. And it's a mistake I noticed other people also make while starting e-commerce. So if you want to start e-commerce business, or you are starting the e-commerce business and you know how to import already, I would advise that before you go ahead to import a product, make sure you've tested it. And testing it means that you are actually testing to the market to see if they are actually interested in buying that product at your price point and your own particular kind of product. Because sometimes you might see other people selling the products and you don't know. It could be that they're actually testing the market, and if they find out that the market is not working, they close their adverts or they turn off their adverts, and that's all. But for you, if you make the mistake and go ahead to import that product, you will now discover the hard way. You actually discover it's the hard way, and that's not the best way to go about this business. Number 2 mistake I made was selling bulky items. That mistake, I think back then, this thing, still the same way, I go ahead, source for products, find out that this product is working. Now, the next thing I want to do is import it or look for a supplier to sell their product. So back then, there was a time I got a particular product, I think this yam pounder. So I got the yam pounder and I started selling the yam pounder. Now, in the process of selling the yam pounder, there was something I discovered with selling that yam pounder. The packing of that yam pounder is actually a little big, and I was also adding free gifts to it. So imagine, as big as that size is, I'm now adding a free gift to it, and they will ship it, deliver it to my customer. And because I didn't have enough money to buy bulk of that item, I was selling directly from my supplier. So imagine having to ship one product every time out of my supplier's point to sell to a customer. The cost was really tight. It was cutting off my profit anyhow. So by the time I discovered how much profit I made from the business, I discovered that I was basically working for my supplier and the logistics guys, and by then I'd already gone far. I sold that product for like months, about 6 months plus, and when I discovered that, I had to stop selling that product. So for me, I'm going to advise that if you're starting an e-commerce business in 2026 and you are not big on cash, you don't have so much cash at the moment to test and experiment things, and you don't have that leverage. When I mean leverage, you don't have the leverage of having suppliers in different states, different locations, then I will advise that you go for products that are lightweight, so that when it comes to logistics, they run it for you so easy. Items that are less than 3 kg, 4 kg, once it comes to shipping them, sending them, wheeling them from one state to another state, is so easy for you to do. And you don't have to pay all those, throat cutting prices. You don't have to pay all those high charges when it comes to sending out your items from one point to another point. Number 3 mistake I made was selling products that had different variants. So let me explain this. So if you see a product that has different sizes, different colors, or different shapes, there are different widths, it's advisable not to sell those kind of products. I sold a product, I think it was a tummy belt that helps people to slim down, and that belt had different sizes. And there was a time I sent the product to a customer, and the customer tested it and returned it back to the delivery agent and said that it's not her size and that they should bring her size and all of that. Now, this was really annoying for me because she had opened up the pack of that stuff and she had tested it on her body. And if you take it to another customer and the customer discovered that it's stained from, testing it out or wearing it by somebody else, you know how this thing can be. So I'm paying you this much money and you're delivering something that's already been tested. It was crazy for me. And I had this kind of experience at different times with different customers. And this was one mistake that I really regretted, because at the end of the day, it made me spend a lot of money. I had a lot of failed deliveries due to this. I had a lot of customers requesting for a particular size, a particular color that they wanted. And I'm like, this is the color we have that is available. And you see a customer say, no, I want this other color. This is a customer that has made an order, but now they are telling you this particular color they want, and you don't have that color in stock, and she doesn't want to take the color you have, and that is it. You've actually missed out on that order. So my advice is stay away from products that has different variants. So number 4 mistake is relying on one, and I'll explain to you what I mean by relying on one. So relying on one is the concept of relying on like maybe one ad account, one product, one supplier, one distributor, or one delivery agent, things like that. So but in our context, in the e-commerce space, relying on one that I'm talking about is about relying on one ad account, relying on one ad to help you do the magic, relying on one supplier, relying on one delivery agent. So basically, if you are starting e-commerce business, one of the things you don't want to do is to rely on just one account. So if you are starting and you have another account you're using currently to run ads, I would advise you have a spare ad account on the side, because Facebook can decide to ban you at any time without your knowledge, and you might appeal and get it reinstated back, but sometimes you might not get it back. And in the case you don't get it back, you need to continue business. Business has to keep moving, and for you to keep moving, you need an account, a backup account that should be on the side for you. Now that's one. And there's also a part of supplier that I'm going to talk about. So for supplier, if you are starting the e-commerce business, I will advise that you have more than one supplier, because one of the reasons is because when you might want to scale your adverts, and your supplier can now break your heart and tell you, sorry, our product zero dey come, just give us 2 weeks, give us 1 week, and your advert is running. And most times, because you are running only one product, you now find yourself stuck. You cannot move again. You are now confused. What should you do next? Should you just turn off the ads and wait for the product to come? But how are you going to now survive for the next 1 week? Are you just going to keep spending from the money you've already saved up, instead of you to be making money continuously? So all of these things happen when you rely on one supplier. I had my own fair share of one supplier ish, and that's why for me, I basically don't rely on one supplier. I like to have at least 2 suppliers that sell a particular product. Though one may be a little higher than the other one, but sometimes what you just need is stability. You need stability. And if you have another supplier that can stand in the gap pending when your main supplier's product arrives, then that gives you stability in the business. And that's what you need. So if you want stability in your e-commerce business, I would advise you, don't rely on one ad, don't rely on one creative, don't rely on one ad account, don't rely on one supplier too. So number 5 mistake is the mistake of selling too many products or selling to too many markets. So because you now know how to sell products, there's this temptation for you to want to venture into every product you see, provided you can get a supplier that can distribute the product for you. And most times it happens when you started, realizing profits here and there, you're making little money, little income, and the next thing you see, you are selling this product, you're selling product B, you're selling product C, all at the same time. And what happens is that at the end of the day, there's going to be one of that products that will just be killing your profits. It will just be taking your profits gradually, and you won't even realize it until you've gone 3 months, 4 months making that mistake. So I remember there was a time I was selling a product, and I think that was the time I was selling an IT, and I was selling another product on the side. So in that period, I was struggling with the IT because the product wasn't really generating so much profit for me, and it was giving me a lot of issues, difficulties in trying to sell it. So the other product I was selling was a blender. I was selling a blender then, and the blender was fast moving. I was getting lots of orders and delivering them and making good profit from them. So one time I just sat down to even do my numbers, like, what's happening, what's going on here? Let's check these numbers, let's see what's going on. And what I discovered was that this particular IT was actually eating into my profits because I wasn't making profit from that business. I was actually making a loss. So I had to turn off all the other adverts and just focus on one product. Now, I'm not going to advise you to focus on only just one product, right? When you focus on one product, what you want to do is you want to have a backup product just in case this product now begins to die down, because there's something called market saturation. There's sometimes the market at a particular point in time can just decide to stop buying from you or stop buying the product. You in the process of trying to figure out what is wrong, what the issue is, it might take you maybe a week, maybe two, to fix that up. And in that time, if you have a backup product, that backup product could be making you little cash on the side, and you can use that to cover up pending when the other one comes back, and you can turn it off if you want. But if you find out that the other is profitable, you can also run two of them concurrently. And I'm going to say, if you're starting as a newbie in 2026, run just one product. Don't have so many products. Run one product as your main product, and the other one should be something you just test out and keep them down. So you have them down. Whenever your main product decides to die down, you can just revive your new product. You can test in your new product, run it, and start generating orders and delivering them while you're figuring out what is actually happening to your main product and why it's dying down. If you want to grow and scale your business in 2026, then you need to know your numbers. And when I mean know your numbers, you need to know exactly how many orders is going to get you a certain amount. So like for instance, you want to set a target for yourself that this month you want to hit 10 million naira, 100 million naira, whatever amount you want to set for yourself. You need to be able to know how many orders can help you achieve that. You need to be able to know on a daily basis what number of orders you need to get, how many orders you also need to deliver to get that amount. And in knowing all these numbers, you also need to know what is your daily income, what comes in, what goes out on a daily basis. All of these things need to be broken down on a daily basis. So if you enjoyed this video, kindly hit the subscribe button below this video and turn on the notification bell so that you get notified the next time I drop a new video. And until I come your way next time, it's peace.